Have you ever felt like there is some invisible architecture to human existence that nobody ever bothered to formally explain to you? Like everyone else got handed a secret rulebook on their way into the world, and you were just left to figure it out? Listen, it's not because society is intentionally trying to hide the truth from you. It's actually because the vast majority of people walking the earth right now have never taken the time to decode the rules themselves. Most of us are just wandering blindly through the labyrinth, bumping into walls. So, I'm going to be real with you. The fact that you clicked on this and are reading this script today, at this exact moment in your life, isn't some random glitch in the algorithm. It means you finally hit that precise psychological threshold. You know the one. That feeling where you are just exhausted from playing life on autopilot. You're ready to strip away all those comforting little illusions we tell ourselves and confront the raw, unfiltered mechanics of reality, the actual stuff that forges extraordinary individuals. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's deconstruct the 10 foundational pillars of human transformation. And just a heads up, these are not your typical live, laugh, love platitudes. These are the brutal, liberating principles that separate the people who merely exist from the people who actually architect their own destiny. Let's dive in. Let's kick things off with the most uncomfortable pill to swallow. Time is the singular, absolute dictator of your existence. And here is the kicker. It is entirely indifferent to your emotional state. Time doesn't care if you're having a bad day. It doesn't pause when your heart gets broken. It doesn't rewind when you make a catastrophic, embarrassing error. And it certainly doesn't grant you a 6-month extension just because you haven't quite figured things out yet. It just flows forward. Relentlessly. Like this unyielding river that's carrying all of us toward an inevitable waterfall. I think the greatest psychological trap of our modern era is this subconscious belief that we all possess a shadow life. You know what I'm talking about. That hypothetical future where you'll suddenly have the boundless energy, the razor-sharp focus, and the perfect financial circumstances to finally become who you were meant to be. We end up treating the present moment like a dress rehearsal, assuming the real performance kicks off tomorrow. But let me tell you, tomorrow is the most dangerous drug on the market. It sedates your ambition. It quietly convinces you that hitting the snooze button on your life is completely harmless. Have you ever noticed that bizarre elasticity of time? Think back to when you were a kid. A single summer vacation stretched out like an epic cinematic trilogy. It felt endless. Yet in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, an entire calendar year seems to just evaporate in the span of a long weekend. You blink and it's New Year's Eve again. This isn't some weird biological anomaly. It is a direct psychological consequence of routine. The older we get, the more we automate our lives. We stop experiencing the novel, the frightening, and the profound. We just lock into a groove. Imagine your life for a second as a digital avatar in an open-world RPG. Right now, your avatar is probably stuck in a safe zone, performing the exact same repetitive idling animation every single day. Wake up, commute, scroll on your phone, work, scroll some more, sleep. Rinse and repeat. You aren't actually playing the game. You are literally just burning your subscription time. And here is the harsh reality. Every single time you delay an action, the universe charges you compound interest, and you pay it with your life force. You delay fixing your diet? Your physical vitality pays the interest. You delay launching that business idea? Your financial freedom pays the interest. You delay having that deeply uncomfortable conversation with a partner? Your mental peace is footing the bill. Look at the life of Steve Jobs. Before his tragic passing, he reached this profound state of clarity brought on by his pancreatic cancer diagnosis. He famously said that remembering he would be dead soon was the most important tool he ever encountered to help him make the big choices in life. Why? Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all that paralyzing fear of embarrassment or failure, those things just evaporate in the face of death. Jobs treated time like the most finite, precious commodity in the universe. He cut out the noise. He stopped tolerating mediocrity. He operated with this terrifying urgency because he actually heard the clock ticking. Now, you do not need a terminal diagnosis to wake up. You just need to realize that the price of your inaction is the exact life you could have been living. Think about it right now. What is the one monumental task your future self is screaming at you to begin today? Whatever just flashed into your mind, that's it. That is your mandate. Begin it now. Okay, this next one is a massively liberating psychological phenomenon known as the spotlight effect. Basically, it's the cognitive distortion that tricks us into thinking everyone around us is constantly observing, analyzing, and judging our every single move. We walk into a crowded room and assume all eyes are burning a hole into us. We post a piece of content online and imagine this grand tribunal of critics tearing it apart. We stumble over our words at a meeting and genuinely believe the memory will be etched into the minds of our coworkers for decades. Are you ready for the glorious, freeing truth? Nobody is thinking about you. I know. That sounds a bit harsh to the ego, but trust me, it is the ultimate emancipation. You are not the center of the universe. In fact, you are barely a footnote in the minds of your peers. And why is that? Because every single human being on this planet is entirely consumed by the chaotic, terrifying, and overwhelming experience of being themselves. Let's go back to our RPG metaphor. Imagine walking your avatar into a bustling digital tavern. You're sweating, terrified of making a wrong move, terrified of looking foolish. But if you could somehow hack the game and look at the programming of every NPC in that room, you'd see their internal dialogue is just a frantic loop of self-preservation. Did I leave the stove on? Does this shirt make me look cheap? Why hasn't he texted me back? Am I a complete failure? Everyone is so desperately trying to curate their own survival and social status that they have exactly zero cognitive bandwidth left to scrutinize your life. That massive audience you are so terrified of disappointing, it's completely imaginary. Consider the legendary musician David Bowie. Back in the early 1970s, he created the persona of Ziggy Stardust. The world became absolutely obsessed with this character. Ziggy was a cultural phenomenon, filling massive arenas and completely dominating the zeitgeist. And what did Bowie do at the absolute peak of Ziggy's fame? He abruptly killed the character off live on stage. Just ended it. The public was shocked. Critics screamed that it was career suicide. But Bowie understood a fundamental truth. The crowd's obsession is fleeting, fickle, and ultimately self-centered. The audience didn't actually care about David Jones. They cared about how the music made them feel. By realizing that public opinion was just a hollow projection, Bowie freed himself to constantly reinvent his art for decades, completely ignoring the temporary outrage of the masses. The fear of judgment is basically a prison built with imaginary bars. When you stop yourself from publishing your art, launching your channel, or wearing the clothes you actually like, You are voluntarily surrendering your autonomy to a phantom jury. The exact moment you internalize your own profound insignificance to strangers is the exact moment you become truly dangerous. You are finally free to fail. You are free to experiment. Try this mental trick next time you're paralyzed by the fear of what others might think. Imagine every single person walking past you has a video game loading bar hovering above their head. That bar is at 99% capacity, filled entirely with their own financial stress, relationship drama, and existential dread. There is literally no memory left on their hard drive to record your awkwardness. Just go live your life. Let's talk about fear. Fear is not some undeniable physical law of the universe like gravity. It is literally just an evolutionary survival algorithm running on completely outdated hardware. Millions of years ago, fear kept us alive when a rustling bush meant a saber-toothed tiger was about to end our genetic line. It was useful. But today, that exact same biological alarm system triggers when you are about to send a risky email, ask someone on a date, or hit publish on a piece of creative work. Your brain takes a totally benign, modern situation and violently spins it into a catastrophic horror film. It projects vivid holograms of public humiliation, financial ruin, and social exile. It tells you that if you fail, you will be cast out of the tribe and left to wander the wasteland alone. But listen to me. Fear is a fraudulent fortune teller. The grand disasters it predicts almost never actually materialize in reality. Reality is remarkably mundane. If you try that new venture and it fails, the earth does not split open and swallow you whole. You just wake up the next morning, drink your coffee, process the data, and adjust your strategy. Imagine your mind as an overzealous dungeon master in our RPG, constantly trying to convince you that behind every single wooden door lies a level 99 dragon ready to incinerate you. Because you believe him, you stay in the starting village forever. But the truth is, behind most of those doors are just minor puzzles, temporary inconveniences, and massive treasure chests of experience points. Most of the profound suffering in your life has never actually happened to you. It occurred strictly within the theater of your own imagination. You have successfully survived 100% of your actual bad days, but your mind has dragged you through millions of purely fictional apocalypses. Take the late legendary basketball icon, Kobe Bryant. Early in his NBA career, during a highly critical playoff game against the Utah Jazz, a young Kobe shot 4 consecutive air balls at the very end of the game. He cost his team the series. On a national television stage, he failed completely. For most athletes, that level of public humiliation would have shattered their confidence permanently. The fear of repeating that moment would have made them pass the ball for the rest of their career. But Kobe understood something profound. He realized the fear of the airball was infinitely worse than the airball itself. The reality was just physics, a ball missing an iron hoop. He didn't die. He wasn't banished from society. He took the empirical data of that failure, flew back to Los Angeles, and shot in a dark gym until the sun came up. He stripped the emotional horror away from the fear and left only the mechanical lesson. The anticipation of pain is always more agonizing than the pain itself. The worst-case scenario your brain fabricates is just a ghost story meant to keep you safely inside your comfort zone. But comfort zones are where potential goes to suffocate. The next time the voice of fear starts screaming through the megaphone in your mind, visualizing your total destruction, treat it like a toddler throwing a tantrum in a grocery store. Acknowledge it, pat it on the head, and step forward anyway. Action is the only known antidote to anxiety. You do not conquer fear by outthinking it. You conquer fear by walking directly into the friction and proving to your brain that the monster was made of smoke. Oh, we humans love the aesthetics of ambition, don't we? We absolutely love the idea of the master plan. We go out and buy expensive leather-bound journals. We download complex productivity software, and we construct these massive, sprawling flowcharts detailing exactly how we are going to conquer our industry over the next 5 years. We spend months just polishing the blueprint. But here is the devastating reality that nobody wants to admit. Perfectionism is not a standard of excellence. It is just a highly sophisticated form of procrastination with a great PR team. You don't fail because your capacity is too low. You fail because your plan is so overwhelmingly massive that it completely paralyzes your ability to take the very first step. You're standing at the base of Mount Everest, staring at the summit, and the sheer vertical drop terrifies you so deeply that you refuse to even tie your hiking boots. In the digital world of our RPG, this is the equivalent of a level 1 character refusing to go kill the low-level boars in the forest because they are obsessively mapping out the strategy for the final boss fight. You cannot skip the grind. You cannot bypass the micro-actions. Monumental success is never born from a single cinematic leap across a chasm. It is the result of thousands of tiny, unglamorous, barely noticeable steps compounding over a massive horizon of time. Momentum is infinitely more valuable than motivation. Motivation is an unreliable emotion. Momentum is a physical law. Consider the philosophy of the iconic comedian Jerry Seinfeld. When a young comic asked him how to become better, Seinfeld didn't hand him a massive philosophical treatise on the nature of humor. He gave him a calendar and a red marker. He told him to write one single joke every day and put a giant red X on the calendar. "After a few days, you'll have a chain," Seinfeld said. "Just keep at it, and the chain will grow longer every day. You'll like seeing that chain, especially when you get a few weeks under your belt. Your only job next is to not break the chain." Notice the absolute genius of this. Seinfeld did not demand a perfect 60-minute HBO comedy special. He demanded one joke, a micro-action. It is almost impossible for your brain to generate enough anxiety to stop you from writing one single joke. When you set an impossibly large goal, your brain actually triggers a dopamine spike just from the fantasy of achieving it. You feel productive without having produced a single thing. But when it comes time to execute, the friction is too high, and you collapse. You have to shrink your actions until they are so embarrassingly small that it requires zero willpower to execute them. Do not vow to read 50 books this year. Commit to reading 2 pages before bed. Do not vow to launch a global tech startup. Commit to buying the domain name today. Do not vow to lose 50 pounds. Commit to drinking 1 glass of water every morning. Small steps act as Trojan horses, bypassing the alarm system of your amygdala. Before your fear realizes what is happening, you have already taken action. And action breeds confidence. What is the smallest, most granular, almost pathetic micro-step you can take in the next 10 minutes toward your ultimate vision? Go do it. Break the paralysis. We need to talk about pain, because humanity has a fundamentally flawed relationship with it. We view suffering as a glitch in the matrix, some unjust punishment from a cruel universe, or a signal that we have taken the wrong path in life. We spend billions of dollars on anesthetics, digital distractions, and escapism just to avoid sitting in the discomfort of our own suffering. But pain is not your enemy. Pain is the ultimate, uncompromising teacher. It is the chisel that carves the marble of your character. Imagine pain as an unrelenting drill sergeant in our psychological RPG. Every time you take damage in the game, the sergeant isn't laughing at you. He is upgrading your armor. He is screaming at you to pay attention to your vulnerabilities. If you constantly run away from the damage, your character remains soft, fragile, and completely unequipped for the higher levels of the game. Think about going to the gym. Growth is entirely dependent on friction. A muscle only hypertrophies and grows stronger when the muscle fibers are physically torn under the extreme stress of heavy resistance. The tearing is painful. The recovery is painful. But the result is undeniable strength. Your psychological resilience operates on the exact same biological principle. Emotional pain tells you exactly where your boundaries have been violated. Financial pain tells you precisely where your value in the marketplace is lacking. The agonizing pain of heartbreak illuminates the exact depths of your capacity to love and exposes the flaws in your selection process. Pain isn't a punishment. It is raw, unfiltered data. Look at the extraordinary life of David Goggins. He didn't emerge from the womb as the toughest man on the planet. He was a deeply traumatized, overweight, depressed exterminator who sprayed for cockroaches at night. He was drowning in physical and emotional agony. But instead of continuing to run from the pain and self-medicate, he turned around and walked directly into the center of the fire. He used the immense suffering of his past as fuel to callous his mind. He put himself through Navy SEAL Hell Week 3 times. He ran ultramarathons until his bones literally fractured. Goggins realized that the dark room of suffering was the only place where true transformation actually occurs. He didn't just survive his pain, he weaponized it. We live in a culture that worships comfort. But let me tell you, comfort is a silent killer. It rots ambition. It atrophies the human spirit. When you constantly seek the path of least resistance, you are guaranteeing yourself a life of profound mediocrity. The next time you are enduring a brutal season of life, whether it is a business failure, a messy divorce, or a deep existential depression, do not look up at the sky and ask, "Why is this happening to me?" That is the language of a victim. Instead, shift your internal framework. Ask yourself, what is this specific pain trying to teach me? What weakness is it exposing? What tool is it placing in my inventory? When you shift your perspective from suffering to learning, pain loses its tyrannical grip over your mind. It transforms from a prison sentence into an elite training academy. There is a silent, invisible economy constantly operating in every interaction you have. I call it the economy of respect. People do not treat you based on your inherent human dignity. They treat you based on the behavioral training you provide them. You are constantly broadcasting a frequency that dictates exactly how much abuse, neglect, or disrespect you are willing to tolerate. Your relationship with yourself sets the absolute baseline for how the world is allowed to interact with you. It is a psychological contract. If you constantly self-deprecate, if you instantly cave under pressure, if you apologize for simply existing, taking up space, you are handing the people around you a manual that says, "I am a low-value commodity. You may treat me as an option." In our RPG analogy, imagine your avatar walking into a trading post, holding a remarkably rare, legendary diamond. But instead of demanding gold for it, your avatar is programmed to eagerly accept a handful of rusted copper coins because you are desperately afraid the merchant might get angry and walk away. The merchant isn't evil for taking the diamond. He is simply responding to the price tag you set. You may not be at fault for how a toxic person treats you the very first time. But if that person treats you toxically a second, third, and fourth time, you are no longer a victim. You are a willing volunteer. You are endorsing their behavior through your silence. Consider the legendary comedian Dave Chappelle. In the early 2000s, he created one of the most culturally significant television shows in history. Comedy Central offered him a staggering $50 million contract to continue. $50 million. But the environment behind the scenes had become toxic. The creative control was slipping, and he felt the industry was crossing profound personal and moral boundaries. He was losing his soul. What did he do? He walked away. He left $50 million on the table and flew to South Africa. The media called him crazy. The industry blacklisted him. But Chappelle was drawing an ultimate boundary. He was broadcasting to the universe, "My integrity is not for sale at any price." Years later, he returned on his own terms, securing even more massive deals and commanding unparalleled respect. He didn't just demand respect. He demonstrated that he was willing to burn his own house down to maintain his boundaries. Setting boundaries is not an act of aggression. It is an act of extreme clarity. It is an educational process for the people in your life. Many people are terrified of setting boundaries because they fear conflict. They fear that if they say no, people will abandon them. But understand this profound truth. A boundary will only ever anger the people who are heavily profiting from your lack of one. When you finally stop being a doormat, the people holding muddy shoes will be furious. Let them be. Start reclaiming your territory. If a client texts you at 11 p.m., do not reply until 9 a.m. If a friend constantly belittles your ambitions under the guise of just joking, calmly look them in the eye and tell them the conversation is over. You do not need to shout. The most powerful boundaries are drawn with quiet, unshakable eye contact. You shrink when you swallow your truth. You expand when you stand your ground. I blame the internet for this one. We have been completely brainwashed by highlight reels. We are fed a daily diet of overnight millionaires, cinematic training montages, and explosive viral moments. We have been conditioned to believe that the pursuit of greatness is this thrilling, adrenaline-fueled roller coaster ride of constant inspiration and euphoria. This is the great deception. When you zoom in on the actual mechanics of world-class success, you will discover something deeply unsettling to the modern mind. It is incredibly, excruciatingly boring. Mastery is not a fireworks display. Mastery is watching paint dry. It is the quiet, solitary, unglamorous repetition of the exact same fundamental movements, thousands upon thousands of times, long after the initial excitement has completely died out. Imagine your RPG character trying to max out their blacksmithing skill. There is no epic cutscene. There is no dramatic orchestral music playing. You literally have to make your character strike the anvil with a hammer 10,000 times. Clink, clink, clink. Most players quit because the mechanism is monotonous. They want the legendary sword without the mind-numbing labor of the forge. The people who dominate their fields do not rely on passion. Passion is a highly volatile chemical reaction that burns out quickly. Professionals rely on the cold, mechanical engine of discipline. They do not wait for the muse to strike. They do not need to feel inspired to do the work. They execute the required variables regardless of their internal emotional weather. Take Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian in human history. How did he win 28 Olympic medals? Did he rely on dramatic, cinematic bursts of motivation? No. For 5 consecutive years, meaning 1,825 days in a row, Phelps did not take a single day off from training. No birthdays off. No Christmas off. No lazy Sundays off. Every single day, he stared at a black line at the bottom of a chlorinated pool for hours. It was wet, cold, exhausting, and numbingly repetitive. But while his competitors were resting on weekends, Phelps was compounding his advantage. He fell in love with the boredom of the black line. This is the barrier to entry that filters out the tourists from the professionals. Can you handle the monotony of the grind? The day you feel exhausted, but you sit down and write the code anyway. The morning it is raining, but you lace up your running shoes anyway. The week where your metrics are completely flatlined, but you hit publish anyway. That is the crucible. Success is not an event. It is a pattern of behavior. Stop looking for the magic bullet. Stop waiting for the dopamine rush. Fall in love with the boring, repetitive, foundational actions of your craft. The universe rewards those who can sustain focus long after the applause has faded and the thrill is gone. This one hits close to home. There is a hidden thermostat inside your mind that dictates the absolute maximum level of success, love, and happiness you are allowed to experience. This thermostat is not set by your conscious desires. It is set by your subconscious self-worth. It operates on a ruthless law of physics. You will never, ever outgrow your own internal baseline of what you truly believe you deserve. If you consciously desire financial freedom, but subconsciously believe you are an imposter who deserves to struggle, you will instinctively sabotage every lucrative opportunity that crosses your path. You will pick the wrong business partners. You will magically forget the deadline. You will artificially lower your reality to match the temperature of your internal thermostat. In our RPG landscape, imagine your avatar possesses a magnetic aura. But this magnet does not attract what you want. It strictly attracts what you are. If your self-worth coding is low, the magnet emits a weak frequency, pulling in toxic relationships, exploitative bosses, and massive anxiety. If you reprogram the code to high self-worth, the frequency shifts, repelling the parasites and attracting high-level alliances and rare opportunities. You have tolerated agonizing situations in your past, not because you are fundamentally weak, but because a fractured part of your psyche believed that the agony was the best you could possibly get. You accepted the crumbs because you didn't believe you were worthy of pulling up a chair to the banquet. Look at the extraordinary origin story of Sylvester Stallone. Before Rocky, Stallone was an absolute nobody. He was so broke, living in freezing apartments in the 1970s, that he reached a point of absolute desperation. He had to sell his beloved dog, Butkus, for $50 outside a liquor store just to survive. That is rock bottom. He wrote the script for Rocky in a manic 3-day sprint. The studios loved the script. They offered him immense sums of money for it, up to $360,000, which was astronomical wealth in the 70s. But there was a catch. They wanted a real star, like Robert Redford or Burt Reynolds, to play Rocky. Stallone refused. He was literally starving, wearing threadbare clothes, but his internal thermostat was set to an unshakable standard. He knew his worth. He told the studios that he would rather see the script burn than let someone else play the character. He held the line against unimaginable pressure until they finally caved, paying him a fraction of the money, but allowing him to star. That single decision birthed a multi-billion-dollar franchise and an Oscar-winning career. Stallone's external reality was poverty, but his internal self-worth was royalty. Eventually, reality had to bend to match his thermostat. Listen, you cannot fake self-worth with cheesy affirmations in a mirror. Self-worth is forged through undeniable proof. It is built by keeping the promises you make to yourself. Every time you set an alarm for 5 a.m. and actually get out of bed, your self-worth increases. Every time you say no to a toxic friend, your self-worth increases. It is a brick-by-brick construction project. Take a devastatingly honest look at your current life right now. The relationships you are in, the salary you accept, the physical health you maintain. This is a perfect, flawless mirror reflecting exactly what you subconsciously believe you deserve. If you want to change the mirror, you must first change the programming of the magnet. The human brain is arguably the most complex and powerful supercomputer in the known universe. But it possesses one fatal flaw. It is a chronic, pathological liar. Your thoughts are not objective reflections of reality. They are heavily filtered, emotionally biased hallucinations generated by a survival organ that is constantly looking for threats. If you sit in a quiet room and allow your thoughts to spiral, your brain will construct a multi-layered, Oscar-worthy narrative detailing exactly how incompetent you are, how everyone is secretly judging you, and how your future is destined to collapse into total ruin. It speaks with absolute, terrifying authority. But it is lying to you. Imagine your brain as a glitching dialog box in your RPG interface. It constantly pops up on the screen, flashing red warnings. Warning: critical failure imminent. Do not attempt quest. You are under-leveled. But if you ignore the dialog box and just press the Move Forward button on your controller, your character walks into the dungeon, swings the sword, and easily defeats the enemy. The interface was lying to protect you from taking a risk. Actions are the only honest metric of reality. Thoughts create a deafening, paralyzing noise, but actions cut through the static and deliver absolute clarity. You cannot think your way out of a psychological rut. You cannot sit on a meditation cushion and violently think your way into becoming a confident, bold individual. Confidence is not a concept. It is a byproduct of empirical evidence. You only gain confidence by taking an action, surviving the friction, and showing your brain the physical proof that you did not die. Consider the philosophy of billionaire entrepreneur Richard Branson. His entire empire is built on a simple 4-word mantra: screw it, let's do it. Branson is severely dyslexic. He struggled immensely in traditional academic environments. If he had listened to the thoughts of his inner critic, he would have remained paralyzed, believing he wasn't smart enough to run a global corporation. Instead, he constantly threw himself out of the airplane and figured out how to build the parachute on the way down. He started an airline without knowing anything about aviation. He let his actions dictate his reality, rendering his fears totally irrelevant. When you are trapped in a loop of overthinking, your mind is basically trying to control the future by rehearsing every possible catastrophic outcome in advance. It is a defense mechanism, but you have never actually had to survive an imaginary scenario. You only have to survive reality. The moment you feel the paralysis of analysis creeping in, you must short-circuit your brain through immediate physical action. If you are terrified of the massive project, do not plan it. Write the first sentence. If you are dreading the gym, do not think about the hour of sweat. Just put your shoes on and walk out the front door. Action is the great deflator of anxiety. It punctures the illusion. Which mechanism is going to pilot your life? The neurotic storyteller in your head, or the undeniable reality of your hands? Do not wait for your thoughts to align. Move, and your thoughts will be forced to catch up. And here we are, the grand finale of the human experience. The most pervasive myth in our culture is that transformation is this slow, agonizing, passive process that requires perfect timing, divine inspiration, and external validation. We are waiting for the stars to align. We are waiting for the new year. We are waiting for the universe to grant us a cinematic moment of profound enlightenment that will permanently rewrite our DNA. But that is not how human trajectory is altered. Your life does not change in a year. It does not change in a month. Your life changes in one singular, irreducible fraction of a second. It happens the exact moment you make a definitive, uncompromising decision that you are absolutely done tolerating the current version of your existence. In our RPG, this is the moment the player stops mashing the same buttons, drops the controller, recalibrates their entire strategy, and manually alters the code of the game. It is a sudden, violent pivot in the narrative arc. You do not need motivation to change. Motivation is a fair-weather friend. Real change is born from disgust. It is born from a quiet, cold, rational realization that the path you are currently walking leads directly off a cliff, and you refuse to take another step in that direction. Look at the late, legendary Anthony Bourdain. For the first 4 decades of his life, Bourdain was not a globally beloved icon of culture and travel. He was a struggling, heavily indebted line cook in New York City. He was battling severe substance abuse, grinding out grueling shifts in hot, miserable, grease-stained kitchens. He was pushing 40, staring down the barrel of a completely unremarkable and potentially tragic life. But one day, something snapped. He didn't wait for a fairy godmother. He didn't wait for inspiration. He made a brutal, definitive decision to write an unvarnished, aggressive exposé about the dark underbelly of the culinary world. He sent it to the New Yorker. That single decision, born out of deep frustration and exhaustion with his own narrative, ignited a chain reaction that birthed his book Kitchen Confidential, launching him into the stratosphere. He didn't magically acquire new talents that day. He simply decided to stop playing the role of the tragic, addicted line cook. He drew a line in the sand. Your turning point will likely not be televised. It will not happen on a mountaintop. It will probably happen on a random, rainy Tuesday evening. You will be sitting in traffic, or folding laundry, or staring at the harsh fluorescent lighting of your office cubicle, and a profound stillness will wash over you. You will hear a quiet voice inside say, "I cannot do this anymore. I am meant for more than this." That is the ignition point. But remember, the decision is only the spark. The fire must be fed with the relentless execution of the previous 9 truths we just talked about. Change is actually the easiest part. The decision itself takes less than a second. The difficulty lies in the thousands of mundane, unglamorous micro-choices you must make every single day afterward to defend that decision. So I leave you with this ultimate inquiry. Strip away the ego, strip away the defense mechanisms, and silence the noise. If your life continues on the exact, precise trajectory it is on at this very second, if absolutely nothing changes, will you look back on your deathbed with profound pride or suffocating regret? You hold the pen. The simulation is waiting for your next command. The clock is ticking. Decide.